Welcome to the Peptide Pulse, where precision meets possibility and science ignites human potential. I'm Dr. Adam Boender. I am the peptide researcher, and I'm here to bring and be your guide on where the industry is going and what's actually happening in the world of peptides. It's such a big industry right now, and everybody's talking about it. But what I really want to bring and what the Peptide Pulse really wants to bring to you is not just the experts and their understanding of what peptides are for you, not just the science of individual peptides or even just new peptides. What I want to bring to you is real life transformation. I'm extremely excited because we are going to be having people coming on that have really experienced what peptides can do for them. And until we can fully understand what's happening there, I mean, that's really what drives the industry forward. Is real life experience, whether it's anecdotal or it's even science-based, it all has to start somewhere. And so the Peptide Pulse is your guide. It really is your guide to help you understand that peptides are safe, that they're effective, and they're truly going to transform the way that medicine is actually utilized, not just in America, but within the world. And I'm extremely excited to bring this to you. This is episode 1. And towards the end, we're going to be talking about other episodes to come. I'm just stoked, guys. Like, this is fun because science can be fun. Stories are fun. And really, we want to make this relatable. So kind of want to get into first here, like, who am I? You know, why listen to me? I am Dr. Adam Boender. I am actually a chiropractor by trade. I run multiple practice management groups and help clinicians implement different modalities and therapies, specifically peptides. I got into this industry, truly, like I said, I was a chiropractor, but I got into this industry because my world got flipped upside down. My wife had chronic Lyme disease. She was bedridden. I still remember the day that, she was walking. We're actually heading for a vacation to Florida, and I had my oldest son walking hand in hand, and we had our little girl, and then our son Tristan, our third. He was only 3 months old. We were heading to Florida, and my wife's walking down the hallway, and she just collapses to the floor, and she couldn't get up. And we knew that she had Lyme, but we didn't know what steps to take and what to do. We didn't realize that it could actually literally take her down. I picked her up, and I drove directly to the doctor, and we started down this road of the only thing that we knew, which was antibiotic treatments, and being told by the physician that after a few weeks, don't worry, this is going to shift and change. And I will tell you, that's the last thing that you ever want to hear from somebody when they don't know what's actually going to shift and change, because it went from her losing function of her lower extremities and not being able to walk to then having seizures on a daily basis. Our bedroom literally became a medical room. We couldn't have light coming in, sound. These things would put her into seizures. We had a giant 4 foot by 8 foot whiteboard that laid out every single meal and medication. She ended up being on over 120 different medications and supplements with a port, IV antibiotics, oral antibiotics, anti-malarial drugs. I mean, you name it, she was on it. And like I said, our world was flipped upside down due to our health, our family, our kids. And that was the beginning of my journey. That journey led me into things like stem cell therapy, exosomes, vitamin infusions, ozones, and today it's led me to peptides. This podcast is not just for people that may be suffering or hurting or dealing with some sort of debilitating condition that are looking for a new answer or hope. Because that's what a lot of people are doing right now in the peptide world, is they're looking for something different. And they're hearing about these things called peptides, which are very, very specific in their mode of action and their modalities. But I will tell you that this is for the clinicians. This is for the biohackers, which I don't like the word biohacker, just to let you know. I like the term biooptimization. So I'm going to be utilizing the term biooptimization as I go through here, because hacking is trying to break through into something, and that's not what we're here to do. We're here to optimize a system, because the way that I explain peptides to people is it's not that your body has a deficiency in anything. It's that there's a lack of efficiency. And so through my understanding and learning and educating around the world and teaching people about stem cells and then exosomes, which are actually that come from stem cells, to then what are those exosomes created from? They're RNA, microRNA, and peptides. They are the signaling molecules. They're the language of your body. And that is why I'm so passionate about this, because you guys are going to be able to experience in the episodes to come, experience the hearts of people whose lives have been completely transformed by utilizing these tiny little molecules that have such a dramatic impact. So again, this is not just for clinicians. This isn't just for biooptimizers or wellness visionaries or health experts. It's for everybody. But I think everybody needs to hear really what's happening in this world. And we need to begin to come together and transform the world of peptides, get it to be mainstream. And there are some things that are mainstream, but you know what? I want to separate this podcast from others. It's not just the science that we're bringing here. Again, we're bringing the real life stories. So again, we're going to be moving from biohacking to biooptimization, showing the truth really behind what peptides can do. These also aren't those peptides that you hear about in your like protein shakes. Those are completely different. These are very specific to your body, like a lock and key mechanism. And so peptides are made to be that specific. Your body already makes them. We're just utilizing them and applying them to a system that has become less efficient. So as we increase efficiency, we increase healing, we increase restoration. And this is not a claim that this is happening. These are just truths that science and research has actually backed up when we start looking at these peptides. So, what is the evolution? Where have peptides come from? People say, well, they're brand new. I'm just hearing about them now. Well, contrary to that belief, peptides are not new. They've actually been around for quite some time. The very first peptide that was actually discovered was in 1921. And it's something that everybody has pretty much heard of. It's called insulin. And that's a big surprise for most people. Insulin was the very first peptide that was discovered. And it wasn't until 1951 that the actual amino acid sequence for insulin was discovered. So insulin was really the very first peptide. And then after that, there was oxytocin, which is known as like the love peptide. Mothers release that when they have babies. It creates this, they also call it like the cuddle peptide. It's also released when you have moments of joy and excitement. In fact, my recommendation is to go hug somebody, because the moment you hug somebody, oxytocin's released. So from there, 1980s, 1990s, peptides really began to come in, and labs started to develop what we know now as peptides in this industry. So from endocrine function, regenerative medicine, and regenerative purposes, athletes started utilizing them. Some of these different peptides like BPC157, melanotan-2, some of the growth hormone secreting peptides that are out there, such as CJC, ipamorelin, tesamorelin. There are so many. In fact, there's over 7,000 different peptides that have been developed. And so, again, I'm not going to touch on all 7,000. Well, maybe we will. I mean, let's say we go 7,000 episodes. I'm cool with that. Why not? Tons of fun. But just the understanding that peptides are not new. Maybe there is a newness within the world that we're listening to right now from YouTube and Instagram, and people are making hype on these things. But the truth is, they've been embedded within research and within medicine for a very, very long time. So continuing down that path in the 2000s, 2010s, kind of that 10-year span, basically it's further research. What are these peptides doing? Not just simplistic peptides, but they start looking at, can we do things for advanced healing, for recovery, brain, DNA repair, things like epithalin, which is, I can't wait for the episode on epithalin. It is transformed. It has been the biggest surprise peptide that I really have ever experienced. And it's one that is super simple. You take it for 10 days, once or twice a year. But just wait till you start to hear the stories that have come from just that single peptide alone, from transforming sleep cycles to just healing and restoration. And there's peptides like MOTS-c, mitochondrial-derived peptides. We know that our metabolism is a major thing, but when they began to research things like MOTS-c, which helps orchestrate how your mitochondria works and functions efficiently, and just think about the energy that you could have, the recovery that you could have just from these peptides. Because I get asked a lot, well, there's not enough research. There's not enough research, doc. Like, show me. I'm like, go to PubMed. I've got data banks and data banks on every single one of these. And it just continues. and the safety of these are phenomenal. So, again, whether it's from pharmaceutical design articles to, there are so many. You can go into PubMed, you can go to Google Scholar, Journal of American Medical Association, any of these. You can actually find research on these peptides. And they all have their different categories. But what I do want to tell you is some of the biggest breakthroughs that we've been seeing are probably the ones that you've heard of or even experienced. And I say experienced because most people have heard of things like Semaglutide, Tirzepatide, and now there are some like Retatrutide, these GLP-1 receptor agonist peptides. Most people don't understand that, these pharmaceuticals that are coming out, these GLP-1s are simply just peptides. They've actually just been, in a sense, altered. Like a GLP-1, like semaglutide, your body naturally produces. It's only activated though, and it only works for anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes. So on a pharmaceutical side, what they've done is they've actually then altered it to make it last for 7 days. And it's been a breakthrough, but interestingly enough, if you really look back at the research, it wasn't developed for things like weight loss. It wasn't developed for insulin sensitivity or any of these things that it's now been shown to help with. It was actually being researched for neurological conditions. And we can go into a whole episode on that, which we will. But even the advancements there, we talk about semaglutide, tirzepatide, but then there's things like Retatrutide, which is a newer one. It's a triple agonist that also works not just on the GLP-1s and the GIPs, but also with glucagon and metabolism activation. So again, peptides I really believe are essential tools. They are a tool that we can have in medicine that is going to transform the way that medicine is utilized in a very safe and efficacious way. Does more research need to be done? Yeah, absolutely. And do you need to go to the right people to get these products and make sure that they're safe and vetted? Yeah, absolutely. But that's why I'm doing this, is to bring more awareness, to show and share the stories of people who have utilized these different products and had life-changing transformations. So, I think what's interesting is when we talk about peptides, it's one of those things in the back that was like, I wrote this quote. I'm going to say this, but it's like, what started in whispers in the back room of the labs is now front page science. So they've moved kind of from this fringe thing to this true fundamental application that is going to transform this medical industry. And so anybody that's on board with me, make sure you continue to watch these episodes because, yeah, we're going to go into it and we're going to go deep and it's going to be fun. So, what's on the horizons when it comes to peptides? What's new? What's changing? Most people understand peptides as basically these injectables, or sometimes there's capsules. They all differentiate, and their bioavailability is different. You're always going to get what I say 100% absorption from a subcutaneous injection. So I said earlier when we talked about insulin as the very first peptide that was actually developed. Most people, especially in the US, because we have a massive issue and a massive, fault, I say, in our healthcare industry where there are more people with diabetes than anything else, which leads to multiple things from heart disease, strokes, you name it. And because when your blood sugar is off and insulin is off, you're going to have multiple adverse effects neurologically and also within your vascular system. But insulin, think about an insulin needle, okay? So that little needle is typically what people utilize for peptide application. It goes around the belly or any sort of fat tissue. When somebody said subcutaneous, that means fat tissue. So as long as you get into the fat, it's going to be able to absorb and get out into your system. And that's the most common and also the most bioavailable. But I was doing some research, peptide researcher. I love the research. And I do want to clarify, as the peptide researcher, this is not just about research on the newest peptide or, the newest combination of peptides or just bringing research articles to you. That's boring. Nobody wants that. What I'm researching is, what are the transformative stories that I can find from people who have tried BPC-157 or CJC or any of them or something that is new? I want to bring those stories to you. That's why we're doing this. And because that's how we create change in science. It starts with anecdotal research, of seeing the change. And then we begin to dive and to figure out what can we do next to make this more mainstream for everybody to have access to it. But with that being said, new horizons, what's really happening? So these insulin needles and the applications, super simple. But now we're moving into other modes of application, from capsules, like BPC157, one of the most common. But not all peptides can be encapsulated because they can't get through the gastric juices. They're going to break down because peptides are extremely delicate, very delicate. They're these little chains that are connected, amino acid to amino acid. Never shake a vial. When you drop it, it could denature it. I mean, you got to refrigerate most of these, which then becomes cumbersome a lot. And that's where some of these new horizons are coming into play, because once you put water into a vial of peptides, if it's lyophilized or in a powder form to make it liquid to use, you then have to refrigerate it. And then the shelf life is maybe 30 days, 60 days, maybe 90, really depending on the peptide. Again, whole other episode, but we'll get there. But we begin to get into peptides that are then going to be showing us anything from neurofunction, and you can get nasal applications. So you can actually spray peptides up in the nasal cavity, getting it closer to the brain, and the cribriform plate, which gets closer again to application of the brain. There are some peptides now where they're actually doing these strips. So like a sublingual strip, they put it on the tongue and it dissolves. A lot of those applications lose the efficacy and the bioavailability, but they're there. And some of the other really fun things that we're actually seeing in this industry is even how the delivery and the precision of this are being implemented through AI. I mean, AI is everywhere, but being able to take and utilize wearables like my watch right here. In fact, the story that, and I'm so excited about bringing Amanda on. I know this is the first time I mentioned her, but her story with epithalin and how we know the story has changed for her is because she had a wearable. She was wearing it's not a Fitbit. I can't remember what it was. It was one of those watches that monitors her sleep and her deep REM sleep. Within 3 days of taking the peptide epithalin, her restorative sleep had completely transformed. And so again, we're not just getting the anecdotal data, but we're actually getting some true evidence based on that. So again, we can begin to really transform this industry utilizing AI, utilizing the wearables. And I really think that's where the industry is going to be going, and it needs to go that way. It needs to be more precise. It's not just guessing, because the other thing you'll see in this industry is that, it's what's the protocol, what's the application, and you'll notice the dosages change with the exact same peptide from person to person and application to application. So we're trying to create this consistency. I think consistency is key. So longevity, regeneration. I mean, again, peptides, there are more and more that are being recognized. I love everything from MOTS-C to epithalin to BPC. Kisspeptin is another one for hormone regulation. It's phenomenal when you see from sleeping, DSIP, delta sleep inducing peptide. In fact, BPC157, if you didn't know, stands for body protection compound. It's made, I call it the multivitamin of peptides. It's phenomenal for tissue repair and gut healing. But one of the things that I really wanted to address today in this very first episode, and if you're still here, you're still listening, thank you so much, because this is the one that you're not going to want to miss, is about nanoencapsulation and isotonic solutions of peptides. Yeah, nanoencapsulation with isotonic solutions for peptides, which with this biotechnology, we can actually begin to take peptides that are widely known for only being able to be stable when refrigerated after it's reconstituted, or you're putting the water in, that's what reconstitution means, in the fridge. What if we could have a peptide that was stable at room temperature for 12 months and you didn't have to refrigerate it? Now, I know that there's some of these tongue strips that have some of this, but what's the actual bioavailability? What's the absorption rate? Maybe 12%, 15%, or the capsules, which is maybe 10%. I will say even with some of these sprays, these nanoencapsulations, that is the game changer. Because when you can encapsulate, you can protect that peptide within that encapsulation and then allow that absorption to be utilized within the body without it breaking down. And having it shelf stable at room temperature. Plus, did you know, maybe you didn't because I haven't said this, but did you know 67% of the population right now doesn't want to inject themselves. They don't want to inject themselves with something that could transform their health, transform their lives, and bring them to a new place that they didn't think they could be. Well, if the majority of the people don't even want to do that, we need to find solutions to offer them these transformative therapies in a way that they can actually take it. Why should they be excluded, right? And then most people do it just because that's the only option. Well, let's create options. That's the advancement. And I cannot wait to bring on, I have a very special guest that's going to be coming on speaking specifically about nanoencapsulation. So again, it's everything from precision dosing to you name it. I mean, this is the pulse of the peptide industry. It's bringing you the advancements and the changes and the stories. And that is why we're here. Ultimately, I'm just excited. I really am. And sometimes when I get excited, I talk way too fast. So sometimes you don't want to push that like 2x or 3x that speeds through this stuff. So, because then I'm going to sound like a chipmunk. You don't want that. But every episode is going to bring you something new. It's going to bring you science. It's going to bring you stories. It's going to bring you real life transformation. And ultimately, my research is about bringing all of that to you. This is for clinicians who may be thinking about wanting to bring peptides into their clinic to be able to help transform the lives of patients because maybe they're stuck. Maybe everything that they've done or maybe everything you've done hasn't gotten you to the place that you know that you can be. You deserve to live a life of freedom and joy and excitement and healing and restoration, not one of constant breakdown. I really believe that to be 100% true, and I don't think our bodies are made to break down like that. But it's because of a lack of efficiency. That language of the body, what are peptides? They are the language of the body. So if we can communicate and we can function and we can restore and we can heal, that's where real transformation is going to be. So we're going to bring you the pulse of this industry, from experts to clinicians to real life stories to the science. And I am really excited about the direction of where this is going. So make sure that as you're watching this, before you go, subscribe, share, make sure that people are hearing about the Peptide Pulse so that they too can have that transformation and understand really where this industry is going and how peptides can actually transform your lives. So excited to see you on the next one. Be looking out for the next drop.